Thanks for joining us at Soul Career. I'm Lysandra Ricketts, and today I'm talking with Toni Spence. Toni just finished a Soul Career course, and she's currently in transition from being head of strategy at Grace Kennedy, which is a conglomerate based in the Caribbean, to being a senior analyst for business development at MasterCard, which is a global company with operations in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Toni, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sandra.
Can't wait to tell your incredible story. She got the new job at MasterCard because of going through the Soul Career course.
Definitely.
So she's a great success story. I'm so excited to get her story out there. But let me start by asking you, Toni, what brought you to Soul Career to begin with?
Well, Sandra, I've been working at Grace Kennedy for a number of years in the role of strategy for a number of years. And I actually love that job, and I love the company. It's so warm, rich. The work was really interesting, but I felt like I got to a plateau personally. I started to discover new facets of me, of my what brings me joy. And so I started pursuing some of those things outside of work.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I started a, what do we call it? A vlog or a YouTube channel with my sister. And it's called Change Makers. And we bring financial empowerment to millennials. I like to think of it as being millennial money experts because it was a space that I had kind of self-taught myself, and I didn't find resources very accessible in the Caribbean or women who were even talking about money. So that was an area that I started pursuing with my sister, and it's been fantastic. So when I thought about my professional life, I said, wow, I want the same kind of excitement.
Yeah.
I wanted that excitement again. So I met you, so I can't say that I even went out looking for career coaching or anything like that, but I ran into you, and you were telling me about, this program, and I thought, a soul career? That's not even possible.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I was a skeptic, but I knew that that's what I wanted. And I said, if it exists, I want to do what I can to try and achieve it. So I thought about it long and hard. It's an investment. And I thought what really flipped it for me was I invest in so many other frivolous things all the time. Why not invest in myself?
And the thing that you said to me was, well, I buy handbags that cost all the time.
Yes.
So it's just the cost of a handbag for me.
Yes.
Which I thought
and
was
the
great.
ROI is going to be tremendously more.
Yeah.
So I decided to sign up. And I also decided, Lysandra, to do it 110%.
Yes. That is so important because you have to do the exercises and do the work to get the results.
Yes, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, guys.
Well, the thing is, I believe in rigor.
Yes.
If I'm going to put a product out into the world, it has to have results. And I know what got me the results, what got my brother the results, and people that I've worked with one-on-one. So I had to put everything in there so that you could have the transformation at the end. Because it's not just about learning stuff for learning's sake, and maybe one day you'll implement it into your life. It's about actually getting the result right out of the course.
Yeah.
And 4 weeks after taking the course, you got an offer for a new job at a higher salary, but more soul as well.
Yes.
So fantastic.
And another key thing, Lysandra, was this is in going back to choosing to invest in Soul Career. By now, at this stage of my career, I'd done a lot of interviewing. I've written, a professional resume. I've kind of been through the paces. So it wasn't that I lacked knowledge of a career search and what it takes to interview well and get that offer. But I felt that I needed someone to hold me accountable as I did the work. That's initially what was my intention. So I felt like I was getting an accountability coach.
Right.
And what I discovered was not only did I get accountability, but there were a lot of things that I didn't know. Perhaps I took it for granted that I knew a bit of it, but there was a depth to a lot of the topics that I gained a lot of new skill sets and started sharing with other people, but I won't give them everything because they need to do the program. But yeah, that was a key part for me, getting that accountability and not just feeling like it was about learning new skill sets. It was really the partnership that I was looking for.
Right, and one of the things that I remember you saying during the course was the weekly group coaching was something that you found really useful.
Fantastic.
Why is that?
Because you got to, we got to really dig deeper into what we were experiencing, and even to hear the thoughts of others. It really pushed what was it lifted it off the paper, I think. So when you added your testimonials, you and Warren's testimonials are so powerful, and I think it really brought the content to life. And then to be able to share what I was struggling with as I was reading the content, and you really saying, okay, well, Toni, you're doing too much of this, or you need to do more of that in just how I was thinking. So the live coaching sessions are invaluable.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about your story. So we know that at the point that you came to Soul Career, you were wanting to bring forth more creativity that was in you. And I want to dig deep into why did that disappear? Where did that go over the course of your career?
That's a good question, Lysandra. I think it just happens over time. I think you master a certain area, and there's a complacency. The routine of it just kind of overwhelms the creative side of you. Maybe you've tried to put forward some creative things and it didn't work, and so you kind of lose the energy. So I will also be honest and say I did not feel, and it was my own, I was imposing it on myself. I don't think anyone was imposing it on me, but I felt like I could not be fully creative. Like that would not be received well. And I had an expectation of a brand that I essentially, I think I created a brand that I believed is what the company and society and everything needed me to be, and it didn't include that creative side of me.
That's so interesting. So you're a dancer. So tell us a little bit more about that creative side that got oppressed or suppressed. You're a dancer, you like acting, you have this stage presence. So where did that come from? Tell us the journey of that creative side.
As a child, at prep school, a dance teacher came and they said they were going to offer classes, and I just said I want to do that. I had no inkling, I didn't grow up seeing dance, and that was about 8 years old, and I did that for a long time through high school and university, and a little bit in my early professional life, and then work overwhelms you. And you think that there's no space. In the early days of working, I made time to do it, and it got tiring. It got tiring, and it's like the gym. Once you stop going, it's hard to get back on it. So, a couple years ago, again, just thinking about my whole self, and I knew that I wasn't realizing my full potential. I said I want to get back into the arts, and doing that led me to Change Makers. So as you said, the dancing led me to acting, and it's just been, my world has just like blown up in the last few years. And yeah, I suppressed it.
Yeah.
I didn't allow it because I have been able to do the creative things even with no change in my job.
Right.
You know, I just made space for it, and I found it energized
Yeah.
me. So I wasn't losing energy.
Yeah.
It was energizing me to do the 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, that's something that I don't think I want to let go of again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I am curious to know your professional trajectory.
Mhm.
What did you study in college? Where did you go to college? I know you were living in New York at one point before you came back to the Caribbean. So start us in college. What did you decide to do?
I went to Middlebury College in a little town called Middlebury, Vermont. It's a liberal arts college
Yeah.
with like 1,000 students, and a black population of 10. But Middlebury was a fantastic experience.
It's a very creative place,
Very
right?
creative, and that's why I think I was drawn to it. I was able to do Russian literature and dance, and I know my computer science courses. So I ultimately studied computer science and Spanish. I lived in Spain I did my junior fall semester in Spain.
Hold on, I did junior year in Spain. I lived in Spain for a year in my third year in college.
Really?
Where in Spain were you?
I lived off of Gran Via.
Which
In
city?
Madrid.
Madrid.
Mhm.
Okay, I was in Seville.
Oh,
But I love Spain. Oh my God.
yeah, I cried when I left.
Me too.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about
Yes,
that.
yes.
Okay, but go back. So Middlebury gave you all these. Yeah.
Middlebury really showed me I could do anything I wanted to do. That was the value of that education for sure. And you know, it's time to get a career, time to get a job. I really had no intention of living in the US, but we were offered a year to work. So
Because you were an international student on a visa.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So the career office said, oh, you know, there's an investment bank looking for a woman in technology. And I was like, what am I going to do at the investment bank? Because I had done no econ, no kind of coursework. But I really wasn't knowledgeable of the company at all. So, but they were flying me out there. I said, sure, I'll go. And I went, anyway, long story short, I interviewed, I accepted a position there in their technology division, which supported the private wealth management business.
So are you willing to say what company this was?
Yes, so that was Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman
So
Sachs.
she went from Middlebury art degree, Spanish,
Yes.
living in Spain,
Yes.
into the investment bank on Wall Street in New York, Goldman Sachs,
Yes.
supporting private wealth.
Right, so I did that for 2 years. And I saw that there were going to be some changes in terms of technology was evolving and a lot of things were becoming remote, and the track was, I would have to have taken a software programming track, which at that point I said, I don't want to be in a room coding day and night and not interacting with people. So I looked around at my network at the time, and I'd made a lot of relationships in private wealth management, right? Because I was supporting them and engaging. And there was a position that became vacant for an analyst on one of the desks. And I just kind of raised my hand and said, hey, I don't know anything about finance, but I love engaging with people, and I'm going to work harder than anyone else. And of course, you know, I'm bright, so I can learn anything you need me to know. And, you know, that team, my partner, Greg Hokamp, he gave me a shot. And I stayed on that desk for 7 years. I started as an analyst, and I left as a VP.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so fantastic experience. We supported ultra high net worth clients. And then again, I got a little agitation about home. I would have been older now, and my priorities started to shift. I'd given everything to that job, and I mean, Goldman is a fantastic, fantastic company. It's really one of the best in the world. But my priorities were shifting, and I said, you know, I want to build the Caribbean. And I made a plunge, and I came home in 2011.
Okay, let's pause there so that I can recap everything you just said. So you were an artist, a creative that buck-ups ended up in finance at Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, New York City, 7 years in private wealth. And around the time of the recession, actually, right?
Yes. A huge learning experience.
Right? Yeah. I'm sure it was. You decided that you needed more mission.
Yes.
You needed a mission and you wanted to do what you were doing in New York, but for the Caribbean.
Yes. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do in the Caribbean.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I just knew I needed to go.
Yes.
So naturally, I think the next step was an MBA. So I opted to do the MBA here in Jamaica at UWI, and I was going to use that time as like my figure it out time as to what the next step would be. And during that coursework, we did strategy courses, and I said, wow, I kind of just love the variety of it and the questioning and the curiosity of strategy really appealed to me. So I started interviewing for those roles, and that's what launched me. We can just fast forward. I ended up at Grace Kennedy doing strategy.
So when you were making that decision to leave New York City to come back to Jamaica, to leave this job you had been in for 7 years. I've been at the Branson Center for 7 years at this point, right? So that decision is not easy because there's a comfort level that you have. You're around wealth. You're in private wealth. You are in New York City, the heartbeat of the U.S. I'm biased, so don't hold that against me, right? So that decision point, how did you end up making the decision that is so hard for so many people to make?
Lysandra, it's funny that you put it that way. I guess so.
Yeah.
But honestly, at the time, it was very clear. It was very clear. I'm a woman of faith, and I felt very strongly that that's what the Lord wanted me to do next. People told me I was flat out crazy. Told me straight, you're crazy. You're not going to be happy. Gave me 1,000 reasons not to do it, but I felt so clear, despite not really knowing what I was going to do. Because there comes a point in your life, Lysandra, where the frustrations kind of exceed the benefits, right? So even though I loved my team, I loved the company, I loved New York, I wanted to make impact. I wanted to be around the people that made me the person I was, and I wanted to influence conversations that were happening in the Caribbean, because we were always talking about Jamaica, right? We would get together and we would talk and we would say we're going to fix it, we would do this, we would do that, and I said we can't talk about it and not participate.
And that inflection point is a point where so many people decide to start looking for a soul career, where they want to have a bigger mission, a bigger impact that they're having in their current role, and where they know that there's something in them that needs to be birthed. And if you reject that call or avoid or ignore when that feeling starts arising within you, it leads to long-term unhappiness. And it leads to a suppression of something in yourself that we're all here to birth something in our lives, right? And if we suppress that, it really suppresses ourselves and kills something really important inside of ourselves.
I completely agree. And I want people to know, it took me 3 years between the time I mentally decided to move back home and actually was on a plane. It was about 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's important.
It's a wrestling. It's a wrestling, but eventually I think the call and the urge will become too much. And so you just have to kind of give in and flow with it. So I have no regrets.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're glad, Jamaica is glad that you came back and that I came back, right?
Yes, I hope so.
So you came back, you did an MBA at the University of the West Indies here, and you ended up really liking strategy and ended up in a job at Grace Kennedy. So how long have you been at Grace Kennedy now to this point?
This will be 6 years.
And what is the
Isn't that interesting? How like a 6-7
7 year itch.
thing. Yeah.
It's a 7 year itch.
Interesting.
Yeah. Everybody
Yeah.
gets it apparently.
Yeah.
Relationships and jobs.
Really?
So 6 years in, what are all the things that you learned about yourself working at Grace?
That there is more in me than I knew.
Yeah.
And my ability to influence is greater than I knew. Because, you know, Grace Ken is a very nurturing environment. And I think having come from New York, coming with those skill sets, people are hungry to know how it's done elsewhere and to get new ideas and innovation and new ways of thinking. And so I was able to bring that to the organization. And so my ability to influence, my ability to lead, it's really where I tapped into leadership as well.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it just stretched me. It took me to another level of ownership, but kind of just scratched the surface. So I think now my jump is to fully jump into ownership and building something from the ground up, right? Grace Ken is a mature company, so all our business lines, you know, we had the benefit of working in the success of something that other people had built, and just about, you know, maintaining, taking it to the next level. But I think now what's creating that next jump for me is I want to build it from the ground up and really own it.
And we see that with Changemakers as well,
Yes.
the YouTube channel that you created, where creativity doesn't necessarily have to come out as you being an artist or being a dancer or an actress, although you have all of those in you. It can also come out with you creating something of value in the world and delivering. You like my summaries.
Yes, they're on point.
And really birthing something that comes from your mind and something that's valuable for other people to learn from your experiences. So personal finance is an area that a lot of people, even people who have studied finance, struggle with because it's not really taught. More people are teaching it now, but when we were in school, it wasn't really taught. So how did you I'm interested in how you and your sister came together and came up with this idea. Because Warren and I, my brother and I, created Soul Career together.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So how did you?
Me and my sister are extremely close. So my sister started a new job with Sagicor as a financial advisor after spending many years as an entrepreneur, running her own clothing line.
Right.
So you see the creativity.
Yeah, she was a fashion designer. That's how I know her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously she was strategizing about ways to build her client base. And she's now started interacting with a few potential clients. And she said to me one day that she was so surprised at how few people knew what a budget, not knew what a budget, but had a budget.
Yeah.
Because that's their process is they start with, let's talk about your budget so we can decide what's affordable, you know, what kind of policy would be affordable. And she said, Toni, you know, there's a lot of people that don't know what their budget is. And she knew my personal finance practices, right? So she knew every month Toni's going to sit down at her laptop and go through her budget. So and I'd always been preaching that to her. So she said, yeah, Toni, there's a lot of people who don't know. And I said, I've been experiencing that even with my girlfriends and just regular conversations. People didn't understand how a credit card worked or how did you... so I had purchased my own co-op in New York at 25, and they would be like, how did you do that?
When did you talk about that? How did you do that?
So those are the questions that I was personally getting, and I've always just kind of thrown out little things here and there to people, but I said, Jamie, I think we should formalize this and really bring some of the basics to millennials in particular. Of course, anybody is welcome to experience it, but we wanted to have a focus. So that's how it started, and we said, let's just use a phone and let's just set up a light and start talking and put it out there and see what happens. And the response has really been tremendous. People want to do one-on-ones with us, and there's so many people really struggling because either they've made poor financial decisions because of lack of knowledge, not out of just not being able to make a decision, but lack of knowledge led to poor financial decisions, and now they need help as to how do I overcome it and how do I really thrive.
I think this story is really important for why and how you chose the new path that you're on.
Yes.
So coming out of the course, well, actually, week 5 of the course is taking action, setting up coffee chats with people in the industry that you're interested in. And week 2 of the course is doing meditations, and week 1 was law of attraction, attracting things to you, but also taking action. So all of these things combine to a very magical moment that happened to you while you were doing the course. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so while doing the course, I received a call, and the opportunity was presented. And what was interesting, Lysandra, too, was you had us do goals. What would be the goal and this was very early. And I kept complaining, but I don't know, you haven't told me what I should be doing yet. How do we write in goals? But I did say, the one thing that kept coming up for me was I wanted to work with a global company. Considering my background and all of that. So when I got the call and they said, this is the entity, I was like, but this is exactly what I wrote down.
Well, let's be very specific. So a friend of yours called you who was working at MasterCard, and he said, out of the blue, you didn't reach out to him. He just called you up and said, I think you should come work at MasterCard.
Exactly.
So tell us that story.
I mean, that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. And I was like, and so we talked about the opportunity, about the role, why I would be a good fit, and it just perfectly aligned with what we had been discussing in the coursework, and that's the magic of it, right? That's the juice of it. So,
and a light bulb went off in your head, because when you came to Soul Career, you weren't looking for a new job.
No,
you wanted to stay at Grace Kennedy.
Exactly.
And you came to Soul Career in order to make your job at Grace Kennedy into your soul career.
Exactly.
Not to find a new one.
That's correct. That is correct.
Somebody called you out of the blue and started speaking the language that you had written down in the course.
See you, Summers.
And that is what turned on a light bulb for you, like, oh my gosh, I really need to explore this opportunity.
Yes. No, exactly. In fact, you're gonna, in the course we do personality tests and things like that. And they were saying that I love my job.
Yeah.
There were motivators and certain elements, but it said I love my job, and that's why we had talked about just refashioning, and that was kind of how we were working towards bringing my creative self to the corporate side, creating that blend. So to have received this kind of offer was tremendous. MasterCard also is a company that is driven. Its mission is a cashless society, and it believes that by bringing more people into the financial sphere will improve society overall, and a big part of that. So that's really the financial inclusion thrust that is happening in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and really globally. How do we empower people with information and tools so that they can participate in the formal financial sector and really benefit from a lot of the things that you and I take for granted in trying to attain wealth and create a future for generations.
Right, and I think it was really important for us to dive into your Changemaker story, because now we're seeing an integration of the Changemaker side of yourself with the head of strategy at Grace Kennedy side of yourself, and joining those two parts of you into this new job at
Exactly.
MasterCard.
Exactly.
And it reminds me of when you were going through the course and some personal coaching that I did with you on your personal mission statement.
Yes.
So in week 3 of the course, we have everyone write down a personal mission statement. And Toni spent like 7 hours writing down
Literally.
hers. Literally.
10.
And she came up with someone who was so corporate and analytical and financial. And I'm like, I don't see all of you in this. I just see one very narrow view of you.
Yes.
And I was like, Toni, you have to bring in the other stuff too if this is your personal mission statement. So what happened next?
So, and again, it's because it was my mindset, right, Lysandra, that I had to compartmentalize.
Right.
So, you know, you showed that to me, and then you said, Toni, I'm gonna help you through this. And you reworked it, and you actually just took the same content that I had. I was reflecting on it. You took the same content, and you just made it into this new thing that I think I said, wow, this is me. You know?
Well, I took that content you had written and what I was seeing on your YouTube channel from Changemakers and tried to combine them into one mission.
Yeah.
Right? And that was a light bulb moment for you.
Totally. I remember I was driving and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Because it totally, and that was, you know, I mean, it's a point I don't think I'll forget, because it's suddenly like, wow, I see myself.
Yeah.
I see myself.
Wow.
Right?
That's powerful.
And it's powerful. So,
and then now when the MasterCard opportunity came to you, you could filter and say, is this aligned with the self that I created through this course?
Correct.
And how did it start checking all the boxes for you?
So definitely, we talked earlier about me wanting to create something, and the opportunity is, you know, around business development, and it's about taking what they offer and tailoring it to our market. So being able to really drive that in a direct way appealed to everything that we had been talking about: creation, accountability, autonomy, you know, and influencing decision makers. So that really appealed to me. Even the startup nature of the venture appealed to kind of that wanting to break out of, you know, the very rigid, monotonous kind of routine lifestyle that, you know, I had kind of gotten into in my routine work environment. So the startup nature of it appealed to me also. And finally, that I could even share that part of myself to the team, and they embraced it. You know, so I'm excited to see how much more I can parlay that into the role itself.
So literally 4 weeks after you finished the course, you got an offer from MasterCard.
Yes.
So the last thing I want to touch on is the negotiations, because Toni's personality test shows us that she is very much a team player.
Yes.
Harmony, conflict-free, you know, that's her true self. But now you have to go into this negotiation where you have to stand up for yourself and what you want. So how did that feel inside for you?
Awful. Awful, but so satisfying. I knew what I wanted. I said it without reservation. And, you know, they came back not exactly where I wanted. And I went into panic mode. And honestly, I went into panic mode. But you all, you know, you said, you know, stay firm. You should know. And you will go through the techniques of negotiation. So I held on to that despite my panic. And, you know, fortunately, we were able to come to a place of mutual agreement. But the negotiation part was more emotional and nerve-wracking for me. And because I'd always, in every other role, I just kind of accepted the first offer. Always.
A lot of women do that.
Yes. So I'm proud that I was able to really overcome that, particularly through some of the techniques that we talked about.
Right, because in week 6, it's all about negotiations and getting the offer that you want, and then preparing for success in your new role.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so Toni, oh my gosh, you're a real success story for Soul Career. But even outside of that, your story and your journey and going to New York and coming back and going full 100 into being a financial analyst and strategy person, and then coming back from that and incorporating more of your soul and more of your creativity, this whole journey, and you're still in it, right?
Yes.
This is just one
Totally.
step, one other step, and you're going to change and grow even through this position.
Yes.
But the whole point of a soul career journey is just keep listening to your inner navigation system, those inner feelings that come up and say it's time to do something else, and then take aligned action with a plan so that you can maintain your quality of life and end up somewhere where you're more satisfied, more self-actualized, and hopefully more money too.
Yes. And Lysandra, one of the key things I took away from our time was you don't need to be a different person in different areas of your life.
Yeah.
You can always bring your whole self to everything.
Yes.
And it's about believing that truly. And once you've removed the limiting belief that that's not possible, everything becomes available to you. So,
woo! I love that. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. I thought this was an incredible conversation with Toni Spence. And if you want to know more about the course, you can sign up for our mailing list on soulcareer.com. And we will be interviewing more stories and hearing more stories from people who have found the courage to follow their soul career path. So thank you, Toni.
Thank you, Lysandra. And to Warren.
And Warren. And thank you guys again.